Hello and welcome to the I Create Daily podcast. I'm Leora Alderson.
And I'm Devani Alderson. We are the mother-daughter co-founders of the I Create Daily brand.
We are passionate about encouraging positivity, creativity, and productivity while bringing you information and resources that support your creative aspirations.
I Create Daily is for creators in every genre of creating, from musicians to writers, crafters to inventors, bloggers to entrepreneurs. So if you are into creating anything, this podcast has something for you.
So tell us, what would support you most in your journey? You can reach us at creators@icreatedaily.com.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Hello and welcome to another coffee break episode on the I Create Daily podcast, conversations for kindling creativity for anyone in pursuit of the creative life. I'm Devani.
And I'm Leora.
And as we're recording this coffee break, we're a little over a week in our September 30-day iArt Daily Art Challenge, and we're using our iArt Daily Intuitive Art Prompts journal. If you're on video, I just held up our journal. So in this video, we wanted to talk about what is intuitive art. It's sort of like this, maybe a vague concept to many people, something people haven't really heard a lot of. And so like, what is it? And that's what we're going to cover. So
yes.
What is intuitive art?
Sorry for the phone call interruption. I just muted. Okay, so what is intuitive art? Well, first, let's talk about technical. You can find technical and specific instructional prompts in most prompt books and articles anywhere. You know, it's like how to draw a tree or draw a little red wagon or, create a sunset scene, that kind of thing.
Draw a monkey stealing popcorn.
That's a good one. Very creative. So intuitive prompts are geared to help mine the depths of your unconsciousness for gems to polish and then hold up to the light of your conscious mind to continue to polish it and refine it and give it facets and discover the facets. So intuitive prompts help you to think more deeply. If you were ever into poetry or philosophy or studied any of that at school, then you may recall the concept of, what is the meaning of this poet? What did this poet mean by phrasing this sentence in this way? Or what is this philosopher's intent, for the student studying this philosophy or this philosophical conversation. And it is about helping us think. So intuitive art taps into both our, thinking mind, but then it goes deeper because typically we scan through things and we register that in our the surface of our brain, our intellectual part of our mind. But as we begin to ponder it, like, in fact, you mentioned earlier, Devani, you said, there are so many quotes that we use that we've always used, but how often do we really stop and reflect on them, even stop and reflect on whether we even believe it's true, if we were to dive deeper into the meaning of it?
Oftentimes we scroll through so many quotes on any given day that people have decided this is worth putting in quote marks, but we don't. And because of that, it's like we've allowed somebody else to do the philosophy and the thinking for us. Whereas a lot of intuitive art is more about doing it for yourself, looking at what you think might have meaning in your life on a surface level, and then taking it deeper and really pondering it. So it's almost like philosophical art, where you're taking a concept to help inspire, to help your mind work on something, and then you're creating a piece of art that adds another layer of depth and meaning to what you read or what you saw. Or so these prompts are a little bit like diving into philosophy and then creating art around it.
Yes, and so far, right now, our intuitive art journals are quote based. So it is conceptual prompts, and so they're quotes generally around art or creativity, and then the artist is to read that and reflect on what does that mean to me. And if it doesn't hold any meaning to you initially, then you can ask yourself, what did the author of that quote, what were they thinking? What might be their thoughts? Mm-hmm. And so part of what that helps us do is like, intuition is opened when we invoke. So it's like when we begin to probe meaning of things and the depth of things beyond the superficial, then it helps to awaken our own slumbering intuition and invite it out to play. So it helps us think more deeply, look beyond the surface of everything, and also to discover our own thoughts about something. We can register a thought quickly when we see a quote. But then if someone asks us, well, what does that really mean to you? Then we might sometimes have to pause and think, well, I'm not really sure before we can begin to articulate.
Yeah.
And so intuitive prompts then are to say, okay, what does this mean to you? And what if it's a quote that doesn't hold any meaning? Like, for instance, there's a quote by Marc Chagall, who is a Russian-French transdisciplinary artist that's in this the volume 1 of the iArt Daily Intuitive Art Journals. And the quote is, "Great art picks up where nature ends."
That's evocative.
Okay, so what does it evoke for you?
Well, for me, it's sort of like, how are you interpreting the world and how can you put it on paper in whatever form? So it's sort of like, we live in the forest. Obviously, you can see if you watch our videos, you probably know if you've been keeping up with our podcast or hearing the nature sounds, hopefully they're pleasant. But we live in lots of nature. We love nature. We love flowers, gardening, the trees around us. And I think partly because of that, that's influenced a lot of my doodling and art and putting it down on paper, trying to represent what I see or want to see. And so great art picks up where nature ends. It's really about depicting the reality we live in and like capturing it, like capturing moments, a lot like photography does, a lot like describing a scene in a book does, because many fiction authors have talked about how the best fiction is really just about shining light on the truth. And so, or something like that. And so I think that's maybe what art is a lot like, us capturing what we see with our eyes and maybe adding flares or things that we wish were there but maybe aren't.
Yeah.
And so,
or discovering deeper meaning to what is there. So yeah, that's really good. And so, for instance, we host art challenges, and we're hosting one right now, in fact, as we're recording this. And what's so cool is you take the same quote, and then a dozen or so different artists will create something entirely different. And that means that, if we said draw a tree, and we use trees a lot because,
we live in a forest.
And because trees are wonderful to draw. There are so many creative artists who draw beautiful trees. And because we live in a forest, and so it's like sitting right in front of us, standing right, this tall, big oak tree.
I could have said umbrella.
Yeah,
but...
right in front of us. But if we say draw a tree, then you're going to have, like several dozen different trees that are going to be amazing and each different and nuanced. But if we have a quote that is, "Great art picks up where nature ends," then it is like, well, what do you see or hear in that? What does that mean to you? And whatever you choose to draw is a part of bringing out something inside that you may not even have given space to thinking about.
And that's a great point, because we get some emails or comments once in a while that say, well, these don't really feel like prompts to me. These are quotes. I don't understand how this is a prompt. And our prompts are not designed to tell you what to create. Our prompts are created to, like we say on our podcast, conversations to kindle creativity. Our prompts are here to help kindle your own ideas, so that you become the sort of the master ideator of your own art. We don't want to tell you what to make. We want to offer the space and the pondering and the meditation so that you get to create what you want to create and what comes from inside of you that's like waiting to burst out. So, and we're just here to help catalyze the space for that.
Absolutely. And so this is where intuitive art and intuitive art prompts is where you have full permission to color outside of the lines and even to,
disregard lines,
erase them in order to help discover and invite your inner muse and your intuitive nature out to play.
Yeah. And it is meant to sort of stretch your mind. Well, not sort of. It is meant to stretch your mind. That is our goal with these. We're, as much as technical prompts help us refine the work of art, the work required to make things, and how those are very, very important. However, we are not artists in the sense of we can't tell you how to draw a tree, we can't advise you, we can't tell you how to draw a car or a building. However, many of the artists who joined us already know some of that stuff, and maybe they want to brush up, and that's awesome. Our goal with intuitive art challenges of any type, creative challenges we do,
and intuitive art journals,
are, again, for allowing that space for you to be the thinker behind your art.
Yeah, and so here's the thing. This will develop more than your art. It will develop you and your thinking and your life and your relationships, because the intuitive art begins with the art, begins with the journal, and then it travels to other areas of your life relative to what do I really think about this and what's important. And even more than that, it helps. So what we're sharing are prompts and ways of developing intuition that we've developed over the years. And they work toward invoking deeper thinking, which when you begin to do it with your art, you begin to do it in every area of your life.
And it's amazing what we see in our challenges of people uncovering and discovering new layers of who they are and what they want to do, and, sharpening their vision.
Yeah.
So it really helps with that as well.
Right. So whether you engage in an intuitive art prompt journal on your own or join any of our future challenges, which you can see at icreatedaily.com. You can sign up for future ones if there is not one at the time you visit, and we will definitely notify you. Whether you do it on your own or if you join with others, then you get even more ideas and perspective from what other people come up with that help to then open additional doors of thinking and reflection for yourself. But same thing, if you're doing this on your own, then just, rather than saying, well, that quote doesn't mean anything to me, just say, well, if it doesn't, then maybe why not? Because it meant something to somebody, to many people, because it's a quote that may be shared or reflected upon by others. So then just say, if it doesn't mean anything to you, then just say it doesn't mean anything to me because, and I'm going to draw something entirely different, such as the previous quote, I'm just going to draw a nature scene. But part of what you've done is you've worked to, tap in to what nature means to you, regardless of the quote, because it isn't about the quotes. The quotes are simply sort of like a knock on the door for your opening your own intuition and reflection and pondering through your art.
I know one benefit of our challenges is that we provide a couple starter ideas along with the quotes. And likely we're going to be adding that to next volumes of this journal, just because people have, we want this to help you, and we also want it to help anybody who's interested, but still a more black and white artist, where they would rather just have a model of something and do it in their own style.
Black and white as in technical,
not
structural.
color. Yeah. And so we want to, but right now you can get that benefit through our challenges, which we help sort of guide the intuitive process.
Yeah. And like you said, we'll be definitely adding that to future journals as we've gotten feedback from audience members of, this thing about creating conceptually is actually fairly new for a lot of people. So don't worry if you struggle. If you are seeing this and you're not a part of our challenge and you would like to do this and have questions, please do not hesitate to send us an email, creators@icreatedaily.com. We love to hear from you, hear how it's going for you, and if we can, help you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks so much for joining us for the I Create Daily podcast. Please let us know what creatives you would like us to interview and what topics you would be interested in hearing more about.
And if you enjoyed this show, please leave a review on iTunes. We value your feedback. We read all the reviews, and it just helps us get the word out on the I Create Daily podcast. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.